Let's go ahead and take a look at the transfer portal. The portal has closed, meaning you can no longer put your name in. Grad transfers excluded. But with that being said, guys can still commit. There's a lot of guys out there right now, high-profile players, that are out in the portal and that are going to make some team very, very happy. Now, one team that's unhappy right now, at least, is Michigan State. And that's because both Keon Coleman and Payton Thorne have jumped in the portal. Let's start with Keon Coleman, though. He's a wide receiver, about 6'4", 215 pounds, was expected to be the wide receiver one for them this coming season in East Lansing. And here's the deal with Keon Coleman. He's good regardless of the portal window that we're in. For some of these guys, their value is going to skyrocket because it's that second portal wave and people are scrambling to put rosters together. Like if Keon Coleman was in that first portal window, he still would have been one of the top wide receivers available. He's been productive, 58 receptions, 798 yards, 7 touchdowns during his career at Michigan State. It is not ruled out that he could eventually come back to Michigan State, but the good folks at Spartan Mag, our Michigan State On 3 site, they have implied that with the nature of college football being as it is with NIL and all of that, they felt like both Payton Thorne and Keon Coleman felt it was in their best interest to test the open market. Now, a guy like Keon Coleman also played basketball at Michigan State, so he's a one-on-one nightmare, could help a variety of teams. The buzz right now is around Oklahoma and LSU. Now, LSU is interesting because Keon Coleman's actually from the state of Louisiana. So keep an eye on him. I'm sure the Tigers will be very happy to land the services of Keon Coleman. But again, do not rule it out that he could return to Michigan State. Now, as we mentioned previously, his quarterback is also in the portal. Payton Thorne, at the time of us being live right now, is the top quarterback available in the transfer portal. It's productive, 2-year starter. It was assumed he'd be a 3-year starter, even though they had a little quarterback battle going on down there in East Lansing. Thrown for over 6,000 yards in his career, 49 touchdowns. The resume kind of speaks for himself. I think he's a pretty high floor option, if you will. There's smoke around Auburn, a lot of rumblings around them potentially getting him on a visit. We'll keep an eye on that as that continues to develop. But for me, Payton Thorne is more of an elevator for that room or for whatever team you get. I don't know if he makes you a college football playoff contender, depending on where he lands. But for teams that need a quarterback, like I was just saying, Auburn, or heck, even Florida, depending on what they feel about with their quarterback room, he's going to elevate the talent in that room. At best, he's your starting quarterback. At worst, he provides better competition for whoever does end up winning that job. So Payton Thorne, a guy with a lot of experience, would make a lot of teams happy were they to land his services. Really quickly, make sure you subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at JDPikel. Want to make sure that we involve y'all as much in the show as possible. And you subscribing and then follow me on the socials is a great medium for us to do that. Appreciate y'all. With that out of the way, Casey Thompson made headlines last week when he jumped into the transfer portal. Shortly thereafter, was reported by our own Auburn Live that he was on a visit at Auburn. Now, everybody knows Auburn, they're probably in the market. I'll take that back. They are in the market for a transfer quarterback. There's no probably about it. Hugh Freeze has been very clear. We are open to anybody and everybody that can make us better at Auburn. That includes the quarterback position. Now, Payton Thorne and Casey Thompson, should you have your pick between those two? I have my own thoughts on that. We'll talk about it later in the show. But for me, he's a one-year solution. He's got 1 year left, and it makes sense when you take a step back why he left Nebraska. He's got 1 year of eligibility. He would have been in a quarterback battle with Jeff Sims. And oh, by the way, Casey Thompson coming off injury, didn't get spring practice with a new staff. The writing was kind of on the wall to at least be a very competitive battle. And maybe in Casey Thompson's eyes, he said, hey, I got 1 year. I don't want to risk that 1 year sitting on the bench. I want to go to the league. I'm trying to get some tape on the resume. So a lot of smoke around Auburn. I think he's a good fit there. Spoiler alert for what we're about to talk about here in just a second. But Casey Thompson is another good option for a variety of teams in the portal. If it's not Auburn, again, I'd be curious to see what happens at a place like Florida. I'd be curious to see what these other schools look at with a guy like Casey Thompson. He's a Power 5 starter at multiple schools. Won the job at Texas, won the job at Nebraska. If he were to end up at an SEC school like Auburn, I think that would make a lot of sense, and I don't think the lights would be too bright for him. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the show. Another surprising transfer portal name that popped up was Micah Pittman. Slot wide receiver from Florida State. Talked to the good folks over there for the Florida State on 3 site, and they said, yeah, this was kind of a surprise to everybody. Nobody's 100% sure as to why he jumped in the portal, what prompted this. A guy that contributed for you last year, really good in the slot, 32 receptions, 3 touchdowns. He's going to be a grad transfer coming off of hip surgery, and there's a lot of smoke around him returning to the West Coast. He's from California. Arizona State could be in the mix here with Kenny Dillingham having recruited him at Florida State. There's smoke around a Utah or a USC, so keep an eye on that, but the Pac-12 feels like it could be a landing spot for him. Whoever gets him is getting a really solid option in a slot wide receiver. And again, a guy who will be on his 3rd school, but he's a grad transfer. So he was at Oregon, he was at Florida State, he'll be somewhere else next season, by the way things look right now. Now, here's another slot wide receiver that I think is kind of going under the radar with some of these bigger names that have jumped in the portal. But KODY EPPS is 5'11", 187 pounds from BYU. He's got 3 years left of eligibility. He's a guy that's going to help a team, not just for this coming season, but for years to come. And there's a lot of teams out there that need help in the wide receiver room. Auburn's already offered. Ole Miss has offered. Miami's offered. Colorado's offered. He's a guy that has been productive so far. 39 catches, 459 yards, 6 touchdowns. He immediately elevates the talent in that wide receiver room, and he helps a lot of those schools out in rooms that, quite frankly, are a little bit scarce right now when it comes to wide receiver talent. So KODY EPPS, not the biggest name, but with the years of eligibility he has left and the production he's already put forth at the Power 5 level, Power 5, well, I guess BYU is going to be Power 5 next year. BYU plays a Power 5 schedule. Pretty clear that he's going to help somebody. His resume speaks for itself there as well. Now, JAYLEN Key is a safety, 6'2", 185 pounds. He is the #1 available safety in the transfer portal right now. He has released the top 6. That includes schools like Alabama, schools like Ole Miss, Florida State. Florida State is intriguing to me because JAYLEN Key's from Tallahassee. So whenever these guys jump in the portal, especially guys like a JAYLEN Key who are maybe transferring up, do they want to get back home, go play in front of the family, go play in front of the friends? That makes a lot of sense to me. And I was talking to one of our reporters over on War Chant yesterday about potentially adding JAYLEN Key if Florida State were to land his services. JAYLEN Key feels like he could be one of those pieces that when you look back on the 2023 season for Florida State, you say, man, that was one of the key adds that we got in the second portal cycle. Played next to Fentrell Cypress, was a guy that really helped us shore up the secondary. So again, Alabama wants him, Ole Miss wants him, a lot of schools want him. I just wonder if he's going to be one of the missing pieces should Florida State end up landing him. Because we're all on the same page here. Florida State, they got a lot in front of them in 2023. They've built to a year like this. They've done a lot through the portal, a lot of success through the portal. Does adding JAYLEN Key add that missing piece that they need on defense? Curious to find out. Now, let's talk about someone who's actually committed here to wrap this thing up. How about LORENZO Styles? You may know that name because he was a wide receiver at Notre Dame. 6'1", about 185 pounds, I believe. He's not going to be playing receiver at Ohio State. He's going to be playing corner. This is significant because he was switched during spring ball at Notre Dame from receiver to corner. Then he hits the portal. And the immediate thought was, well, he just wants to play receiver somewhere else. No, he wants to play corner, it sounds like. Understands corner is his future, but he's going to do so in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State makes sense for a variety of reasons. He's got family ties there. His dad played there. His little brother's there right now, Sonny Styles, who's a talented up-and-comer they're excited about. LORENZO Styles is not going to be a guy they thrust into playing in 2023. I'm not going to say I'd be shocked if he ended up playing, but the thought for LORENZO Styles is a guy with multiple years of eligibility, a guy who's playing a new position, and a position that Ohio State needs some depth at. So they're going to let him develop, let him figure out how to play corner well, and he's going to be a guy that I think contributes a little bit later on for Ohio State, but a talented athlete. You love the size at 6'1", kind of fits into the modern college football mold around corners that can match up with bigger receivers. I'm excited to watch what LORENZO Styles ends up becoming. Just making that transition from receiver to corner. A lot of guys have done it well. Richard Sherman being a perfect example of what he did. And he did at the NFL level, but going from receiver to corner. It's been done before, and it's been done at elite level, so watch Lorenzo Styles down there in Columbus, Ohio. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.